I've asked my mom more than once whether it was intentional or unintentional for me to be born on my aunt's couch. And she always insists that it was very unintentional. My mother at the point in time was already the single mother to a 4-year-old, my older sister, and she started going into labor. She was living by herself with me in a family member's home in a small town right outside of Altus, Arkansas. And any of you that aren't familiar with Altus, Arkansas, whenever anyone says they're from a small town in Arkansas, it's just like saying it twice. Just say I'm from Arkansas, and everybody knows you're from a small town. But Altus, Arkansas there was a reality show out a few years ago where they sent 2 celebrities from Hollywood to a small town in Arkansas, so it was the exact opposite of what they were used to, and that was actually my hometown where they sent them to go. My hometown I grew up in, Altus, has 4 wineries, 3 liquor stores, and 4 bars for 400 people. That's my hometown. My mother was, till I turned 5, she was a single mother, and every day she would get up and drive about an hour each direction to go to a Tyson processing plant where she would spend all day long cutting chicken off the bone on an assembly line. And she would come home and do the best she could as a single mom. When I was about 5, she met my father that we eventually moved in with and that he raised me. Our house that we grew up in was an old family home that he had gotten from one of his aunts that was built in the 1800s. And you can, the romance of living in an 1800s home is a really, really good idea, like in Nashville. But on a dirt road in Arkansas, it's really not that romantic when you have, snakes coming out of your roof and things along those lines. But the house we moved into, I didn't have hot water till we were in the 4th grade. So in the winter, it meant just running a bath and just setting in it till it got warm enough you could move around. And then we were fortunate enough, whenever my parents built the house when I was in the 10th grade, we were able to get central heating and air. But prior to that, we had just a wood-burning stove. And it's something I've always told my friends, that if you grow up in the city and you don't have a lot of money, at least when you do get money, you have resources for things. When you grow up in the country, you have that. You're like, it would be great if we could get a telephone here one day or cable, but they're like, sorry, we don't run it that far out. So growing up there, we did everything ourselves. That's what I was just used to doing. Everybody I knew worked. My mother was one of 11. Her mother was one of 6. That's just, you had a lot of kids, so you could always get things done. And whenever I turned 12, 13 years old, I got one of the most important things in my life. It's probably one of the best things someone has ever given me. And to this day, I can say it is by far one of the biggest defining moments in my life. When I was 12, maybe 13, is when my father that raised me and my grandfather and my uncle started the family construction business. That's when I got my first job. And I started out, we laid asphalt, we paved roads. The job you drive by and you're like, in the summer, you're like, God, that would suck to do that. That's what I did every weekend, vacation, holiday. And I never really thought about it till I got older, but no one's goal in life is to ever lay asphalt in Arkansas with me. That's equivalent of like everything else in your life failed. Everywhere else you went, even the carnival won't even take you. You ended up in my hometown laying asphalt with me. And that's when I worked with the guys with names like Lucky and Cheese. And Lucky was in a car accident twice before his mother was born. She legally named him Lucky, I guess. But I also realized along the way, these guys had such great stories. It taught me a valuable lesson that if you ever see a guy that has a woman's name tattooed on him that isn't his daughter or blood relative, they're not together anymore. So don't ever ask about Megan. That's just, they're not together anymore. But it taught me a lot, too, that I grew up, I was running heavy equipment and working, and it taught me a valuable lesson that I never had to worry about money. Not that I'm rich by any means, or it just taught me a place to where there was nothing that was ever going to be below me that I wasn't afraid to do. And during that time, I've had a lot of different random jobs. When I first moved to Nashville, I worked security and bounced and things like that, but there was nothing that was ever below me. And I think it's something that today that I see a lot of people that, it's weird hearing somebody say there's something they won't do, but when you really need something, you'll figure out a way to do it. So I grew up doing that till I was, 18, 19 years old. In the fall of 97, I was really excited. I got tired of my hometown. It's a small town. I love the family business. I didn't like the family part of it. Any of you that really doesn't enjoy the holidays with your family, imagine doing that year round and involving a construction company with it. So I decided I wasn't going to go. I didn't really want to be in my small town. Like I said, I graduated a class of 19. That's a public school class of 19. My home school, they actually consolidated a few years ago with my sister's. Her graduating class was the very last class they had. She had a burgeoning class of 13, and they finally shut it down. And I decided that, the small town, my Uncle Mike, along the way, he had married my Aunt Martha, and she always just said, you drink too much. Here's a book, learn how to brew beer. It's going to cost us too much. So my Uncle Mike figured out how to brew beer. And I always remember that's probably some of the only times that me and my dad as a teenager and father could actually sit down and talk and have decent conversations is when we were having some Uncle Mike's beer. And I was like, well, it kind of, it wasn't the same usual beer that everybody else had. It was something a little bit different that was under different circumstances and a little bit different, experience that I was getting from it than just driving around drinking cheap beer in the back of a truck or whatever. So I always remembered that. And my Uncle Mike, that homebrewed, I remember he left, he joined the military when he was young, and he went to Germany. And he always just said, what are you doing here whenever you get out of school? And I'm like, what do you mean what I'm doing here? I want to run this construction business. And he goes, you can go anywhere and do whatever you want. I'm like, where would I go? He goes, anywhere but here. I'm like, so I can go anywhere. He's like, yeah, you can go anywhere. Wherever you want to go. Worst case scenario, you're back here, which is what you're doing now anyway. So you can go. And I'd had a cousin that had ran away from home, and we had always kind of stayed in touch with each other. He was a few years older than me, and he ended up in Murfreesboro, and we'd always kind of stayed in touch. And finally, in the fall of '97, I just got tired of the small town and the family business and everything, and decided to just get on the road and go. I did this single cab Ford Ranger that I had saved up, and I paid it off. I paid it off on a Monday, and I'm like, this Saturday, I'm out of here, filling up the tank. I'm hitting the road, done with this small town. I'm going to Murfreesboro. Yeah. Kind of gets exhausting just saying Murfreesboro at times, but I was going there. There's a lot going there. And I called my cousin. I said, can I get a job out there? He goes, man, you can get a job out here. Don't worry about it. So Monday I paid my vehicle off, and on Friday a friend of mine had just gotten back from boot camp with the Marines, and he said, hey, me and my girlfriend, we're going out partying to celebrate. Do you mind, taking care of us and making sure we get home safe? I'm like, my pleasure. Don't worry about it. They went out partying, and I drove everybody around and stayed sober, and about 3 o'clock in the morning I dropped them off, and I was driving home. And I got probably about 1/8 of a mile from my driveway where my parents were, where I was planning on going home, getting a night's rest, and packing up and leaving for good, hopefully, at that point in time. I got about 1/8 of a mile from my driveway, and I fell asleep and slammed into a telephone pole. And it was so close to my driveway that we didn't even have to call a wrecker. I mean, it was that close. I was that close. I was fine. I hit my head, but I wasn't injured, thank goodness. I learned, I was very frustrated, one, that I wasn't going to be able to move the next day, and two, it's very, very expensive to replace a telephone pole on a Saturday. So I let y'all know, don't ever do that one. So I decided I was just very, very frustrated that I couldn't leave, and I had my hopes. I was already mentally so gone, and I was back to square one. I just went back, because I didn't tell any family I was leaving. I just decided I was just going to leave, and they would figure it out. But I decided to buy another vehicle, and somebody mentioned, like, hey, why don't you give college a go? At that point in time, in my hometown, they just want you out of school. No one ever talks about college. It's never even on the table. I mean, maybe out of everyone I ever went to high school, junior high to high school with, maybe 5 people had ever went to college or even been mentioned. And the guidance counselor never sat down and told us about options or any of that. And, I mean, I'm sure they were stretched as thin as possible anyway. But my mother said, you ever thought about going to college? And I said, well, the closest college is like 60 miles away from here. And they had, lucky for me, they had just dropped community from their name. So it's like, well, it's, got to be on the up and up. So I started the next semester. I started Monday, Wednesday, and Fridays. I would drive 50 miles to college and go through my classes, and at night when I got out, I would work at a taco place because, one, free food, and two, I needed the money. So I was saving back up. I'm like, worst case scenario, I'll give it just another go. So Monday, Wednesday, Friday, I would do that, and then Tuesday, Thursdays, and Saturdays, I would lay asphalt for the family business. And ironically, a year later, it's the fall of '98, and I'm like, worst case, all right, I'm not going to fall asleep. I'm going to get up. I'm really moving this time. I'm gone. So I loaded up $250 in my pocket and my Ford Ranger, and I drove to Murfreesboro. Got to Murfreesboro, and that was the fall of '98. I got a job starting to put Pepsi on the shelf. My cousin had referred me to a friend of his, and within the first 6 months that I had moved to Tennessee, the Tennessee Vols won the national championship. The Tennessee Titans went to the Super Bowl. We were like this close from winning the Super Bowl. It was awesome. And Miss USA was from Columbia, Tennessee. I was like, this place is awesome. This is where I need to be, man. Everything's going on here. So I put Pepsi on the shelf for a couple years, and I ran into this guy, Denny. Still great friends with Denny today. I ran into him at a grocery store, and I said, I was wearing my usual uniform. He was wearing his uniform. I'm like, what do you do? And he goes, I work for a beer distributor. We carry all the microbrews and imports. And I'm like, I don't really know what you're talking about, but that sounds awesome. Sounds a lot cooler than this Pepsi thing. And we just I heard about the company, and fast forward a few years, I was like, man, it'd be great if I worked for them. And I saw an ad in the paper where they were hiring for a truck driver. I interviewed in January of 2000, and April 1st, no joke, I got the job as a truck driver. I mean, it was the best day ever. I remember going in and putting on my uniform and, going in just to deliver beer. I'm like, if I could deliver beer for 5 years before I get a sales job, this would be the best thing ever. I mean, waited my whole life. I mean, from Arkansas. I mean, shiny things made me happy. So I was excited about delivering beer. So fast forward 30 days, one of the beer sales guys, he screwed up and got fired. And they said, hey, Neil, do you want a sales position? And I'm like, I don't know anything about any of this beer or how to sell. Of course I want a sales position. I'll take that tomorrow. And they're like, well, great, you're a salesman. And I just saw the way other salesmen dressed, and they were clean shaven, and they wore khakis and polo shirts. And I'm like, well, I can dress like that too. So that's what I did, and I did that for about 3 or 4 years for Lipman Brothers here in town, and that's when it was hard to find a pale ale on tap in Nashville. Maybe 10 pale ale taps in Nashville, all total. I mean, it was very minuscule at that point in time, and I did that for about 5 years. And another guy, one of my managers, did something really, really stupid and got fired. And they're like, "Hey, we got this management position open. Are you interested?" And I'm like, "I've never managed anybody in my life. Of course I'll take that position. I got to just not do what that guy was doing. I'll do that all day long, And so they said, well, great, you're a manager. And I'm like, all right. So I was fortunate that I worked for a company that instilled in me, that just kind of let me do what was good for business. I was very fortunate that I didn't have to work with a lot of personalities, that at the bottom line, the owner, if it worst comes to worst, he would just say, when it came down to a decision, there was no personality. It was like, is this good for business? And it was something I was always instilled, because my grandfather, growing up laying asphalt, was 6'5", 300 pounds. And not a lot of people gave him back talk. So I was used to just going, do what's good for business, do what makes sense. And I was fortunate that I could do that. I did that for about 8 years. And along the way, about 7 years in, I met our owners, Linus and Lila, the owners of Yazoo Brewery. And Linus and I became really good friends. And it really, I was in such a great place where Nashville was. I couldn't have planned it any better, the way Nashville's gone from '98 till now. Then when I started at Yazoo, he goes, well, we need someone in charge of sales and marketing. Are you interested? And it goes back to never worked for a brewery or done anything with sales and marketing. So, of course, I'm interested. I mean, worst case scenario, I've always thought of every day, worst case scenario, I'm back on that dirt road laying asphalt in Arkansas. And I can honestly say today, that's probably one of my biggest faults, because every day I think of that and I make decisions based on I'm being one decision away from being back there laying asphalt in Arkansas. So when I met Linus and Lila, I found kind of a kindred spirit in ownership, and in the people that Linus, our owner, had worked 2 summers scraping off and painting barges in the Mississippi River. I'm sure if y'all ever been on the Mississippi River during the summer, it's not pleasant at all, let alone scraping barges and repainting them. And I thought, this somebody that I can relate to, that understands what hard work is. And to this day, I've tried really, really hard to outwork him. I've yet to do it. But it's so inspiring to work around someone like that and other people that that inspire you. And it's something that I love about being in Nashville right now, is to look around at what I get paid to do. And my title says sales and marketing manager, but my job is to promote and grow Yazoo Brewery to be Nashville's beer. And that may seem like I'm just selling beer, but I find every day that it's more than that. The people I consider friends, the people that I get to work with, the livelihood of the city is something that every day I have to pinch myself. I find myself going, what the hell am I doing sitting here in front of these people? Just like right now. I'm used to it at this point. But what my job also entails is I go out to a lot of bars and restaurants and events. I mean, one of the most things I'm most proud of every day, and Brad mentioned it in the beginning, is being a member of the Music City Hot Chicken Festival. To be a part of something that our city is known for and is such a big deal. And every time I sit in a meeting when we were planning that, this year's the 10th year anniversary, plug. When I sit in those meetings, I look around the table and I have, our former mayor, Purcell, and all these other beautiful people sitting across from me, and I sit there and they'll stop and go, what do you think, Neil? And I'm like, I go back to, I'm just the guy with the beard from the dirt road in Arkansas. What do you want my opinion for? But that's something that's very special about where Nashville's at right now is that everybody always says that when you get to a certain level of success or a certain point in your life, everybody always wants to ask you, what would you tell your younger self? What would you say to a younger you? Any advice? And I'm very, very fortunate living in Nashville today and doing what I do every day, that every single day of my life I get to answer that question. Nashville has many people that are moving here every day. Every day I get to talk to my younger self. Last week it was a truck driver or a guy that changes semi-tires from Grand Rapids, Michigan, that is thinking about moving here. Where should I live? Where's a good place to go eat? Do you think I can get a job here? What do you think about moving to Nashville right now? And I can be honest with him and tell him how special it is and how special a time it is here right now. Because I consider Nashville more of a time than a place. You can always rebuild the pyramids in Egypt, but you could never replicate the time in which they were originally built. And Nashville is more of a time than a place to me. So thank y'all for your time. Thank you, sir. Really, really, yeah.